There's been a lot of talk this year about the role of law enforcement in our society. Those conversations have sparked lots of emotion from all sides. No matter how you might feel about the current state of policing in our country, there are three elements to those conversations that you could place over every interaction that we have with one another. And that's connecting to history, trauma, and emotion. I've spent the last 18 years as a police officer working in a diverse community. I'd like to share what my time spent immersed with the public has taught me about people and who we all can become during times of stress and emotion. I'm also a trainer for a nonprofit organization called the Connecticut Alliance to Benefit Law Enforcement, or better known as CABLE. Our team trains police officers, corrections officers, and mental health professionals some of the best techniques in crisis connection. But we could train anyone because really, these are human skills. So what's a crisis? I've seen it defined as a dramatic or highly emotional event. As a cop, I'm here to tell you, a crisis can be anything. One of the pillars of our training is that emotion drives behavior. Our emotions are incredibly powerful. They can influence our thoughts and shape our vision of the world. They can take us on a journey of love and strength and compassion. But they can also take us down a dark road of judgment, anger, and bias. Some of the smallest things can trigger us as people. I mean, for some, it's reading a social media post. For others, driving. Maybe even receiving the wrong coffee at Dunkin' can send you into a judgmental tailspin. I'd like you to imagine, right now, you're standing near the checkout line at one of your favorite places. Are you there? Okay, good. Now I'd like you to imagine me, dressed as I am right now, right? I'm a seemingly normal looking guy, right? I'd like you to imagine suddenly, I just step in front of you, cut you in line at the store. How's that make you feel? In seconds, what's the story that you're telling about me? To one degree or another, we've all experienced a moment like this before. And let's be honest, sometimes those emotions at that moment can feel great. It could be an adrenaline rush to name, shame, and blame, especially when you feel that you've been wronged. And how often do we look for just one piece to confirm those thoughts? Whether it's something about the person's physical appearance, or maybe what they even have in their shopping cart. I'd like you to imagine I cut you like I did, but this time I'm in a full police uniform. What story might you write then? Oh, look, another entitled cop thinks the rules don't apply to him. Or much worse. At this moment, our encounter is loaded with history, trauma, and emotion. Both yours and mine. When those histories collide, anything can happen. But what if we knew the truth? Or were able to slow down enough to even consider the possibilities? Because dressed like this, I just lost my job. My daughter's an insulin-dependent diabetic. There's no money for the insurance extension. Deep in debt. My son's a year away from starting college, and my marriage, already on the rocks. Carrying that burden had me distracted. You just caught me in a human moment. I didn't even see you standing there. In a full police uniform? Yep, that was me. I had just come from telling a mom she was never going to see her son again. I walked into a Panera Bread to get a salad. My mind was still processing that conversation. I inadvertently cut the line. By the time I realized it, when I turned around, I could feel my story being written. And you know what? I didn't even blame people for doing it because we're human. social psychologists who study bias report that it's changed in our society. The renowned Princeton University professor, Susan Fiske, captures it perfectly when she says, "This is not your grandmother's prejudice." Traditionally, many of us see bias through the prism of explicit bias, such as racism. And yeah, that exists. But what researchers have found is that many of our bias will manifest as implicit bias, meaning outside of your conscious awareness. You may not even realize you're doing it. So when I cut you in line, those initial thoughts, they may not be filled with ill will or evil in your heart, but defaulting to snap judgments and stereotypes. It could be equally as damaging. Our team at the Connecticut Alliance to Benefit Law Enforcement, well, we came up with a pretty creative way to combat this issue. Now, our technique was originally created for the law enforcement community, so we adapted a catchy tactical police phrase that best connected to our idea. And what we realized pretty quickly was not only how effective it was, but how it can create a shift in thinking for everyone. So I'd like to offer a little peek behind the curtain into our training and share an effective strategy that's worked for us that I know it could work for you too. In policing, there could come a need to force a door open, whether it's to rescue someone in danger, capture a suspect, or investigate something suspicious. Once that door has been forced, you never run straight in. You let the door breathe, meaning you pause. You let the dust settle so you can have a clearer picture of what you're about to enter. Beyond those doors is an unknown space. Those unknown spaces can be loaded with anything. An armed gunman, a missing child, or maybe it's a pile of broken boxes, an old boot, and a stray cat. Anything. From this point forward, I'd like you to think of each and every one of us as a door. On the other side of our door is an unknown space. Our unknown spaces can be loaded with anything. Childhood traumas, addictions, or maybe even the Nobel Peace Prize. The unknowns are endless, but far too often we take one look at that door, we open it, and we run straight in, knowing little to nothing about the stories on the other side. We've become masters at writing each other's story. And it's not just the people that we don't know. We often do this with some of the people that are closest to us. You know, so often when I meet people and I'm out of a uniform, I hear this. "I'd have never guessed you're a cop. You don't look like a cop." Which, of course, I have to follow up with what, right? What does a cop look like? Yeah. There's a stereotype to who and what a police officer is. So when I'm in uniform, my story gets written by every encounter, good or bad, that a person has had, heard someone else have, or saw on YouTube. And it happens just like that. The human brain loves to categorize information based on our life's experiences, our exposures to things, or really lack of exposures to things. Simply put, this means that. So ultimately, my story gets written by a look. We've all done this before, and most have been victims of it as well. The foundation of letting the door breathe is to just pause. It's that simple. The power in that pause gives you an opportunity to be honest with yourself and ask two very important questions. Number one, am I judging this person on what I think I know or what I actually know? And number two, is my history, trauma, or emotion influencing my thoughts in this encounter? Everyone, I'm here to tell you, this is how we begin to humanize each other again and effect change within ourselves, which is where it needs to start. Scolding someone to change their mindset is just ineffective. I mean, really, when's the last time you got the desired effect from scolding a child, all right? Or back and forth on Facebook? Yeah, sure, people might tell you what you want to hear in that moment. But I'm talking about affecting real change. And change starts with us. The power in that pause also gives you an opportunity to become curious. Your curiosity, it could save someone's life. I've stood with devastated family members in the aftermath of suicides. It's heartbreaking. Most times I hear, this wasn't the person that I thought I knew. I didn't believe that person was that sad or even that capable. They told themselves a story that they wanted to believe. I too made this mistake. You know, I stood by and I watched someone's life unravel. And I wrote the story that, well, he was just in a rough patch. I was wrong. Me, like many others, when asked, did you notice anything different in the days and weeks prior? The honest answer is almost always yes. When something seems different with someone, let that door breathe. The power in that pause to connect to what's different so you can step into that story instead of stepping away. It could save someone's life. Lastly, what might that feel like for the other person? As we discussed, emotion drives behavior. This isn't to justify rude or inappropriate behavior in any kind of way. But when you take that pause to connect to what might be driving that behavior, like the time that I walked into Panera, well, it can make all the difference in the world. So the next time you're in a situation or a scenario, like getting cut off in traffic or getting that wrong flavor coffee at Dunkin', let that door breathe. The power in that pause could be life-changing, not just for you, but for the other person. Thank you.